Hey there, future programmers! Today we're diving into the world of JavaScript variables. Imagine you have a bunch of stuff you need to organize, like toys, books, or even those cool rocks you found outside. You wouldn't just leave them scattered all over, right? That's where boxes come in handy. In JavaScript, variables are like those boxes. They give us a way to store information in our code and give each piece of information a name. Just like we label our boxes so we know what's inside, we give names to our variables so we can easily find and use the information later. Pretty neat, huh? Now you might be wondering, why bother with these variable things? Can't I just write the information directly in my code? Well, you could, but it would get messy and confusing really fast. Imagine trying to find your favorite toy in a room full of unsorted boxes. It would take forever. Variables help us keep our code organized and make it easier to work with. Plus, just like we might need to change what's in a box sometimes, we often need to update the information stored in our variables. Variables make it super simple to do that without messing up our entire code. So how do we create these handy-dandy variables? Well, it's simpler than you might think. In JavaScript, we have a special word for it: var. This little word is like a magic key that unlocks the ability to store information. It's like our very own label maker for our code boxes. Just like you would label a box to know what's inside, var helps us label our data. Let's say we want to store the number of cookies we have. Imagine you just baked a fresh batch of cookies and you want to keep track of how many you have left. We can create a variable called numCookies and set it equal to, let's say, 12, because who can resist a dozen cookies? This way we can easily remember how many cookies we have without having to count them every time. See? We used the word var, gave our variable a descriptive name, numCookies, and then used the equals sign to assign the value 12 to it. It's like giving a name tag to a number. Now whenever we want to use the number of cookies in our code, we can just use the variable numCookies instead of writing out 12 every time. Easy peasy. This not only makes our code cleaner, but also more flexible. If the number of cookies changes, we only need to update it in one place. Section 4. A newer label maker. Let. Now remember how we talked about updating the information in our boxes? Just like how we might need to change the labels on our storage boxes to reflect what's inside them, we often need to update the information stored in our variables in programming. Well, sometimes we need to change the information stored in our variables. This is a common task in programming, where data is constantly being updated and modified to reflect new information or changes in the program's state. That's where let comes in. Let is a keyword in JavaScript that allows us to declare variables that can be updated later. It's like having a label maker that lets us change the labels whenever we need to, without any hassle. It's like a newer, fancier label maker that lets us update our boxes whenever we need to. Imagine having a label maker that not only prints new labels but also allows you to easily replace old ones with new information. For example, let's say we eat a couple of our delicious cookies. Initially, we had 12 cookies in our jar, but after enjoying a few, we now have only 10 left. We can easily update our numCookies variable using let like this. Let numCookies equal sign 12, numCookies equal sign 10. This way, our variable accurately reflects the current number of cookies we have. See, we used let this time, and then we simply assigned a new value, 10, to our numCookies variable. This flexibility is what makes let so powerful and useful in programming. Our cookie box now holds 10 cookies instead of 12. By updating the variable, we ensure that our program always has the most accurate and up-to-date information. It's like magic, but with code. The ability to update variables dynamically allows us to create more responsive and interactive programs. So next time you need to change a value, remember the power of let. Section 5. The constant label, unchanging and reliable. Sometimes we have information that we don't want to change. This information is crucial and must remain consistent throughout the program's execution. Imagine having a piece of data so important that altering it could lead to significant errors or inconsistencies. It's like those super important things we keep in a safe and never move. Just as we trust a safe to protect our valuables, we need a way to safeguard our critical data in programming. For these special cases, we use const. The const keyword in programming is our way of saying, this value is set in stone. It ensures that once a value is assigned, it cannot be changed, providing a layer of security and reliability. It's like a super strong, permanent label that tells our code, this value is not changing ever. This is particularly useful for values that are universally constant, like mathematical constants or configuration settings that should remain the same. Let's say we want to store the value of pi, which is approximately 3.14159. Pi is a fundamental constant in mathematics, representing the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. Since pi is a mathematical constant, we can use const like this. By declaring const p, we ensure that the value of pi remains consistent and unaltered throughout our code. Const pi =sign 3.14159. This line of code tells the computer that the value of pi is fixed and should not be changed. Now, whenever we need to use pi in our code, we can just use the variable pi, and we can be sure that its value will always be 3.14159. This consistency is crucial for accurate calculations and reliable results. Talk about secure storage. By using const, we lock in our values just like a safe locks in our treasures, ensuring they remain unchanged and reliable. Section 6. Choosing the right label maker. So we've got 3 different ways to create variables: var, let, and const. How do we know which one to use? Well, it depends on how we want to use the variable. Use var when you need a general purpose variable and you might need to update its value later. Use let when you need a variable that you can update frequently. And use const when you have a value that will never change. It's like choosing the right size box for your stuff. Section 7. Keep practicing. Congratulations! You've learned about variables in JavaScript. Remember, variables are like labeled boxes that hold information in our code. We use var, let, and const to create variables, and we choose the right one based on how we want to use the variable. The best way to really understand variables is to practice using them. So, fire up your code editor and try creating some variables of your own. Experiment with different data types like numbers, strings, text, and booleans, true or false. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become with variables and the wonderful world of JavaScript. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content.